I've been learning about Zoroastrianism. Makes sense because I'm taking Farsi class. Why not learn about ancient Parsis? There was no F in the language till the Arabs took over, but there was no J in English until the 1600s, also. FYI. I want to talk about what a spiritual awakening feels like. And this is the third time I clicked record, so I imagine I have screwed up a few times. So let's see how far I get. Where do I start? So when I was unconscious, assuming I am conscious now, I would describe life as pain avoidance. All the comforts that you find in the material world are fake and they're fleeting. And eventually you either double down until you become like a celebrity or a billionaire, people that surround themselves with so much stuff that they'll never even be able to use it. That's why I think psychologically there's a lot of weird sexual perversion when you get to a certain social status, like Army Hammer. It's like, hey, can you remove your ribs so I can cook them and eat them? That doesn't happen when you, have a soul. So I would say the spiritual awakening is finding your soul. Now I am a cerebral person, so I look at it from like a practical, pragmatic, and mechanical point of view, and then I look at it at the spiritual view, which is more exciting to me because it was elusive. You don't get these books in school. So what sparked my awakening is a lot of things happened at the same time. I had a lot of trauma that resurfaced old childhood wounds. And I also had reached a certain level of success that got me out of my warrior phase and into my statement phase, which is just your midlife crisis. Also called the dark night of the soul in the spiritual community. So if you're lucky enough to go through this, you find one of the secrets of life. By the end of that process, it's a years-long thing, by the way, it's very uncomfortable. And it's uncomfortable because essentially your soul has been wanting something and it's been silenced. You're not even told that you have a soul. Most people don't believe that. And whether your soul is your subconscious mind or God or, the answer is very complex, and it's probably the answer to all that is yes. Just yes. Now, what sparked my consciousness, or what sparked my path of individuation, is I was destroying my life with unconscious behavior because I was just seeking comfort. When I reached a certain level of, whether it's social status or income or whatever, the next step of life is usually get married, have kids, right? And everybody just, to me, seems like they say, I'm the right age and we're dating, you're good enough, let's have kids. And to me, I feel like that conversation should, be longer, because that's a very big decision, because your kids will absorb whatever bullshit that you didn't fix, which is everything. Like, how many people are actually sitting and thinking and journaling and doing the stuff that they need to do, because every single human being is harboring some kind of trauma. Even if it was just you spilled your ice cream, your body doesn't know that there was a Holocaust, so your body will release chemicals and create a trauma based on whatever it is, even if you didn't have trauma. And if you didn't have whether you didn't have parents or you had the perfect parents, you still have this need to figure out what's going on here. Um, Pessimists in the scientific community call it the worship gene, but this is the gene um, for you to find your creator or creative force of the universe, whatever you think that is. So, what happened to me is mine was like basically recognizing my unconscious behavior where as I got closer and closer to going on this solo journey, the dark night of the soul, I was doing erratic things. Like you experience psychosis, Jung says, and I 100% agree with it. I was doing things that are out of character because I felt like I was drowning. And when you feel like you're drowning, I use this example is that someone comes to save you and then you're panicking, so you're going to drown them too. So whoever you're in a relationship, whoever's close to you, friendship wise, like you will just destroy everything around you because you're panicking. So I was going back and forth, making wild decisions, 180 degrees this way, and I was confident. I was like, this feels so uncomfortable. I have to go the exact opposite direction. I would make permanent moves for 2 weeks and then make a permanent move in the other direction. And then the gestation period went from 2 weeks to 2 days to hours. It's like minute by minute. I was like, this way, no, this way, this way, no, this way. And it was maddening. It was maddening. And of course, like people around me couldn't predict my behavior because I couldn't predict my behavior. And people want you to be predictable. And you essentially are so self-destructive, and I think as part of it, you're supposed to be, that you are forced to move in a new direction. The phoenix can only rise from the ashes if everything burns down, which is why that bird is referred to in this process, the phoenix. So there's the athlete phase, the warrior phase, the statement phase, and enlightenment. This is according to Jung. So most people live and die in the athlete and warrior phase, and I was leaving my warrior phase and coming into the statement phase. And what's spiritual about it, rather than it being purely psychological, is one that it's a pattern observed through people throughout history. I'm not the only person who's experienced this. And I had to experience it first before I found Carl Jung's writing, before I read The Alchemist, before I learned about Wayne Dyer and Alan Watts and Neville Goddard and all these things. I had to go through it first to understand that it's a thing. And there's a lot of people in the spiritual community or religious community who think they have answers. And I can just tell by the vibe they have or how they are living that they don't. So like if I go to a church and the pastor is wearing a Rolex, I'm like, you don't get it, not that they shouldn't. I personally don't believe that you should make money off of God. It shouldn't be a living. You should do it out of the kindness of your heart, and do something else. And if people decide to give money, you should be very careful how you spend that, because the money that's supposed to get me into heaven shouldn't be buying you a watch or a car or anything. I think just personal preference. But what I noticed eventually when I stopped panicking, and I stopped panicking when I was left with no more doors to walk through. I had to make a new path. I became so self-destructive that I had no choice but to be alone. And the universe kind of pushed me into it. It's like the door was open, or the door was closed and there was a window open, and I wouldn't go through it. I couldn't do it under my own volition. I couldn't do it under my own willpower. I had to be forced out. Slow learner. Because you take comfort in the discomfort. For instance, like if most relationships that I observe, people are still unconscious when they get married and have kids, and then the kids have the same issues that the parents have, and what that's generational trauma. So when you don't figure it out, whether you have kids or whether you have an animal, the animal has your problems, the kid has your problems, your anxiety, your fear, your whatever. They're absorbing that information. Now, I think modern medical science says that it's learned behavior, but in my opinion, it's and through anecdotal evidence, I think that your emotions are in your DNA, which you then pass down. Because I know someone who was adopted and had their birth mom's temperament and issues, having never met the mom, never knew they were in the wrong family even, but had the same kind of issues. Because in like you're growing for 9 months in this person's womb, their fears, their anxiety, if they're screaming, if they're not sleeping at night, if they're whatever that is, the baby's absorbing for 9 months. The body's absorbing this information in order to survive the same environment as the parent. And there's a psychologist named Dr. Gabor Mate who talked about this, and he's doing a lot of this research where he refuses to medicate children who have ADHD and learning disabilities because he said it's from trauma. So he said he treats it in the home because when you're in fight or flight as a child and you don't have either option, you disassociate, and that's what these learning disabilities are. Totally makes sense. In his case, his mom gave him up when he was a month old because she was afraid she was going to the concentration camps. And as a baby, he was crying all the time. So she was asking a doctor, "Can you please see my baby?" And he said, "Just so you know, all my Jewish babies are crying because of the parents. The parents were under a lot of stress. So the babies were stressed. You're absorbing that, and your body holds the memory. So there's probably things that happened to you before you were making memories that you've held on to. So even if you had the perfect childhood and you, like, there doesn't have to be this giant thing that happened. Just having an unsafe household or yelling or unpredictable parents or losing a parent or any number of things can manifest in your life in a myriad of ways. And of course, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility because what happened to us as kids is, of course, not our fault. But every day as an adult, we still are the result of our traumas, the sum of our parts. We're deciding to do that. We're deciding not to change. We're deciding this is good enough. And for me, I don't know if I would have, if someone reached out to me and said, "I can fix everything for you," I don't know if I would have thought anything was wrong. Because I'm like everybody else. But that was the problem, I guess. So I, yeah, I mean, I actually experienced the psychosis that Carl Jung talks about, where like I wasn't even making memories for, I don't know if it was a year or more. Like since, I mean, think about COVID hits and then they say that we're all dying and everything changes and all this stuff. And concurrently, I was going through the worst like emotional pain I've had. Is like all my childhood stuff came back to surface. A friend of mine's dad said something that upset me, and it made me feel like I like wasn't worth anything, or that he thought I wasn't worth anything. I wasn't, whatever. And I was so upset and so distraught. But if I didn't have things to work on, what he said wouldn't have bothered me. I would have, in fact, seen that he was projecting, that he was actually he was projecting how he felt as a kid onto me. I guess it's a compliment. He was like becoming his father to me, like his father was to him. So of course I was so angry when I was unconscious because like how dare you challenge my worth? And I was immediately pulled into my ego where it's like I'm more traveled, I'm more educated, I make more money, I'm buffer, I'm more handsome, I had all these things. I'm like, how dare you? I'm like immediately triggered me into a low vibrational state. And I stayed there for a long, long time. And it took a lot of self-reflection, a lot of education in order to see like, oh my God, this poor guy, like he probably did love me like a son. And he treated me the way his father treated him. Because I remember him saying a story like when his brother got his PhD, when he walked up on stage and got it, he said, F you, Dad. Now, from an alchemical, spiritual standpoint, the way I see trauma now is that it's meant to shape us. It's meant to give us the motivation, because something my sister always says to me is, I became a lawyer because you said I couldn't. And she says that as like a F you. And I'm like, no, that was the point. That was like, I wanted you to prove me wrong. I didn't, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's, you either become, everybody I think becomes the monster that created them when you're unconscious. So I had all this emotional baggage, we all do, and we project our fears onto our partners, onto our friendships, onto our business relationships. So if you have a fear of abandonment, you'll probably take a lot of abuse. If you have, like if you're an anxious attachment style or avoidant attachment style, you can trace this back to how you were raised. So I find it very interesting, like academically, what's going on with people. And I notice that people usually tell on themselves. Either there's a Freudian slip, or they verbalize how they see you is basically the manifestation of their fears. And no one wants to face their fears. It's scary. And in this world, how do you trust people? How do you trust anybody? But as much as I had my own villain origin story where I was like, these people did this to me and now blah, 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 now I'm going to do this. All the horrific things that happened to me, all the betrayals, all the being used, all the lying, cheating, stealing, whatever it is, I learned from it. And I grew as a person. And weirdly, the people that did this stuff to me, they didn't end up on top. That is when I let things go. Because while when I was holding on to resentment, they seemed to be thriving. But when I finally, like, not just let go, it's not like when you go to a therapist, a traditional therapist, and they teach you how to cope, give you the tools, you just move on. You set the boundaries, which is the first step, I think, to getting to the next stage, is setting firm boundaries so you feel safe. But the spiritual path is learning how to love these people, because you essentially hired them to play a role in your life. It's because you projected onto them your fear that they had the power over you, because no one actually has any power over you. So unconsciously, I was projecting my fears, and I was in a cycle. I was in a cycle that the metronome was picking up pace. And it went from like months to weeks to a couple weeks to a couple days to hours, where I would change my mind drastically, be so sure it's not this I'm uncomfortable, this needs to end, and then move in the opposite direction. And then once I get like once I could breathe again, I had just hours of respite before my demons return. You can't escape it because no matter where you go, there you are. And everything's nailed to a hammer. You gotta develop. So I used this analogy that it's like you're drowning. It feels like it, like that panic. That's the only thing I can explain it as. Like when you're transferring into your spiritual awakening, you feel like you're drowning and nothing fixes it. So shopping, buying stuff, hanging out with friends, drinking drugs, and this is how people get lost in drugs and alcohol and numbing behavior, is that drowning feeling doesn't go away, and nobody tells you this stuff. Everyone else is, even the people who are numbing themselves in healthy ways, like getting really into the gym or um, body modifications or just watching TV, movies, whatever, finding a new hobby. You can numb yourself in ways that aren't visibly destructive, but they are still destructive because you're preventing your soul growth. You're preventing the psyche from being whole, essentially. So it's like you're drowning. And then if someone comes in and saves you or tries to save you, you will drown them. And you essentially have to calm down. And usually it's after you have drowned everybody that you realize like you're the only one left. And then you kind of have to swim to shore. Vivian Green said, life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning how to dance in the rain. So when you feel this drowning feeling and someone comes to save you, and then I have this problem, is like, I want to save people that are drowning, but I know what's going to happen. They will try to drown me. And then as much as I try to be I'm like, I'll be resilient, and I know that it's unconscious and not take things personally, whatever. Like, okay, how about instead of pulling you to shore, I will swim next to you and we'll just head to shore. Just put your one hand in front of the other. I'll like doggy paddle if you have to, and we're going in this direction. And you'll still encounter resistance because it's a solo journey. As much as I wish I could be like the guiding light for people, just from my personal experience, I don't know if anyone tried to guide me or help me, it would have worked. Which is why I didn't have this wise alchemist come out of the sandstorm and, upon a white steed, guide me through the desert. But I feel like the stuff that I've gone through, like the archetype of the wounded healer, so that I can show people the path, which is, I guess, why I record these things, is like, it's a normal thing. And hopefully, if you're lucky enough to go through it, and you can see that someone makes it on the other side, because for a while there was touch and go. It was scary, honestly. Easily the scariest part of my life. You don't know where it goes. So this is like the part Jung says, you don't reach enlightenment by imagining figures of light. It's by making the darkness conscious. So it's your own darkness that you project into the world. So you have to realize how you're the devil. So in my unconscious state, when I reacted in anger or jealousy or envy or whatever the thing is, when you're reactionary, you're doing the devil's work for him. And it was a harsh thing to realize how I've been the devil to people. Because of course, nobody's the bad guy in their own story. But there are things that I did when I was unconscious before I thought I did everything right. I thought I was a good person. And then I look back and I'm like, oh, there was that time I did this. I didn't treat that person fair. Or yeah, I retaliated or whatever the thing is. Um, and I'm still getting better at these things as I become more conscious, as I become more self-aware. And of course, your first reaction, if you're not a narcissist, is to hate yourself and to be upset and to um, you're your own worst enemy because you're the architect of your misery, and you are also the judge, jury, and executioner. So I think it's an important part to realize, but also you have to forgive yourself for not knowing what you don't know, and you have to forgive others, because I think this universe also judges you by the same measuring stick you judge other people. So be cautious. Be cautious, even with your words, because words cast spells. That's why they're called spelling. And although I was talking to a friend and she experienced racism recently, and she was explaining to me in this long text, like, um, these people in this country, they think that black women are hookers. So they looked down on me and they did this and did that. And um, race is like a huge topic these days, but you can't control the thoughts of other people. You can only control your reaction. So if these people were racist against you and then got a reaction, they got what they wanted. So I told her, like, I don't know what that feels like specifically, but you know what I've learned is when someone wants a reaction out of you and you give it to them, you're not going to teach these people anything, especially by reacting in anger. If anything, like, you have to turn the other cheek. Unfortunately, that's the only solution, because screaming at people doesn't change anything. Punching them, kicking them, stabbing them, whatever you want to do is not going, it's just creating more evil. That is them getting you to be the devil, because you're then breaking spiritual law by having unforgiveness and hatred for other people. You should feel sorry for their ignorance. That's all you can do. You'll never get rid of all the racists. You'll never get rid of all the whatever. And even if you're the racist person, like, you'll never kill all of them, whoever they are. So you got to, like, you know, understand that people are unconscious. They can only meet you as far as they've met themselves. And then you also have to think that they have the ability to grow. So you don't condemn them. Because if I'm judged by the things I did even a year ago, I feel ashamed. I feel remorseful. I hope people forgive me for the things that I even probably am doing now that I don't realize until a year from now. So I'm able to forgive everybody for everything, because you have to. You have to. That's part of it. So um, forgiving the family member for this, and forgiving the person that stole your wife, whatever the thing is, um, ultimately you have to switch from, in an unconscious state, you think the universe is happening to you. In a conscious state, you realize, and this is the truth, that the universe is happening for you. And when you can make that distinction, and even if you have to lie to yourself initially, if you get to that point, you will solve every problem that you have. Because you don't fix any problem with hate, you have to fix it with love. Um, and then when you realize that you've been projecting and you've been creating your misery, there's no one to hate but yourself. But even that is self-destructive, so you have to let it go. You have to be in a high vibration. So I've been learning about Zoroastrianism. It was just Persian New Year. I was just like hanging out at my mom's house at my friend's game, and their kids are playing, and remembering when we were kids, and like how much things have changed. And of course, everyone's asking me when I'm getting married. I was like, shut the fuck. when I guess when I'm done with my journey is when I earn the next phase. So I've been seeing a lot of like angel numbers recently, and I'll be thinking about what it means for a while, I think, but like an insane amount. Like how many times in a day can you see a repeating number? So I believe it is my subconscious mind creating it or manifesting it to show my conscious mind something. Because there's this collective consciousness and symbolism is built into us. So if I'm seeing 777 half a dozen times or more, I'm like, okay, what does that mean? And then I like search on the internet, and every time I've ever searched, it gives me a different answer. And I'm thinking, okay, it applies to my life somehow now. So what am I doing now? And over the weekend, I drove to Arizona for a job on Monday. And when I got there, imagine how many miles are from here and there. And I stopped. It was just random occurrence. When I pull up to my friend's house where I'm staying, my mileage was 17,777. And the week prior, I saw 77 a dozen times in a day. I'm like, okay, the universe is telling me something. What is it telling me? Now, Wayne Dwyer said, like, when you are on the path, synchronicity is the norm, not the exception. And boy, howdy, is that true. It is the norm. But it's like so deep inside my subconscious mind that it's like it's eluding me. Now, the thing is, like, I think that I'm doing everything right because I'm trying. And there's a couple situations in life where I'm like, okay, there's a roadblock here, so I'm going to step away. Or I could predict how the future will go. And when you're dealing with someone who hasn't gone through the individuation process yet, it's easy to predict their behavior or the end result, which is whether it's self-sabotage or some other type of result of projection. There's always going to be that. And I deal with it in every aspect of my life, not just, specific things that happens in work. It happens in my personal life. It happens with family. So there's so many things happening, and I'm wondering, like, okay, which of these things is the universe getting my attention from? And then last night, I've also, like, I'd be seeing 777 and I'd see 333. So last night at 3:13 in the morning, I woke up at 4 for some reason. They call it the bewitching hour. 4 a.m. is like everybody's unconscious. And if we share consciousness, imagine we're all sharing the same internet, then the less computers logged in, the more available. Like I'm downloading more packets, I guess, while everybody's asleep. I'm wide awake and thinking about obviously what I'm going to have to tell myself in this screen, because there's something if I can't sleep. And today work was slow as well. So I was like, oh, if I'm working from home, the universe wants me home so I can think. So this girl, Michelle, texts me at 3 something in the morning, says, why is the number 333 bad? You don't have to answer if you don't want to. I was like, who said it's bad? And she's like, you did. Like, I don't remember saying that. And it's interesting that out of the blue, she texted me about 333, and it's the number I'm seeing. I suppose when I hang up, I will hang up this call to myself, to my subconscious. I will actually ask her about it. I sent her a video. So I went to the gym. In the morning, I was like so hyped. I got to record something. Something's in my mind. I have to get it out. And I like doing it when the sun's out. But I was like, let me get the gym out of the way. Let me think a little bit more, because it's not materialized yet. I still just have the emotion rather than the thought. So I am scrolling through my YouTube feed and I see something about synchronicity and I click it and I'm watching it. And at like 11:33, I see the first comment says, at 11:33, I saw this, and 3:33 and 1:30. I was like, oh, these are all of the numbers. And someone told me really recently that they've been seeing the number 11:33. I'm like, okay, this is the first comment. It's like the only comment I can read. It's the only one that shows in the window. Talk about synchronicity. Now, again, it's the norm, so I guess it's not weird, but it is like, okay, so what? What are you telling me? Just say words, dude. What do you want? Tell me show me where I'm supposed to go. Tell me what I should do here. Can you tell me what, like, if I take this path or that path, what's going to happen? I think I just figured out what to do because I remembered my frost. 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the road less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So the path will be the path that nobody takes, the hard path. It's worked out so well so far, you know. I'm at a different part of the game than most people. I saw something that said the universe will restore everything you lost. So I spent a long time minding my P's and Q's and repeating cycles and not letting go of things that definitely weren't for me. And I lost years. I feel like I'm so far behind. So that would be nice. It would be nice. Now, driving out to Arizona to do a car, I'm the first person to dyno tune a Ferrari SF90. As far as I can tell, because there are no crafts out there. So it doesn't look like anyone's. I've seen videos of them on the dyno. No one's posted the videos of the numbers, and I don't think anyone has said this is number before and after. So I'm the only one who's done this. And as we were wrapping up for the day, the car made a lot of power, by the way. Not a big deal. I was deciding, do I stay another day and try harder? Like we had kind of a half a day. And I had been seeing 777 so much. I'm like, okay, like that's like we're at the slot machine. Like, do I keep going? Do I keep? You don't quit when you're hot, right? And then I clicked on a random part of the graph, and it was a 777. I was like, does that mean stop or go? They were saying like, yeah, if you want another day with it, and imagine what I can do with a full day. Magic. But I figured, why push it? Why not quit while I'm ahead? And then after that, I like drove home, and that is a rough drive. And I stopped seeing sevens. I was seeing ones. So I was like, okay, new beginnings. Did that mean I passed or did I fail? Was destiny just within my grasp and I let it go? Or did I do the right thing? Because last time I saw 777 was in Spain. I was at a pool one day and there was like 4 girls sitting around me, all 777 tattoos. I made friends with these random girls, was telling them how I'm seeing angel numbers, And one of them's like, I have an angel number tattoo. I'm like, what one? 777. Now, that trip wasn't my favorite because some people tried to kill me, but I lived. And it gave me like the type of confidence in the spiritual path that I don't think anything else could have. Really made me believe the stuff that I preach. So that was a spiritual lesson for sure. And I wonder if I would have gotten a lesson. I took a step back. Like, I don't drink or party, and then because it was Ibiza, I was like, what's the worst that could happen? I'll have a drink or two. A lot of bad, apparently, but I wonder if I didn't, what would have happened? Like, would I have gotten a spiritual revelation that would have given me the same insight that I have now, or that bad thing gave me, or was I meant to do it? It really was a reminder that alcohol is not on my path, and it shouldn't be on anybody's. It makes you dumb. Makes you dumb. Makes you do things that are out of character. There are things I've done drunk that you couldn't pay me to do. Did it for free when I'm drunk. And I want to be this spiritual, enlightened person. There's no place for it. I was like at a friend's birthday party, and I'm the only. Actually, there's like some Muslim people that weren't drinking too, but I'll never be the life of the party anymore. Unless the party is full of people who want to hear about spiritual bullshit. I just don't have it in me. I know too much, to pretend I'm unconscious again. But it's because I've been through hell. It is said that no tree can reach heaven whose roots don't go down to hell. And boy, howdy, is that true. So once you go through your spiritual awakening, the past you dies. Who you were. When you let go of who you are, you become who you might be. And a lot of people are unhappy with their lives, but they're not willing to change anything. And that's an important distinction. Because people will want to complain, but they identify with their pain. I was doing it my whole life. But you have to be born again. You have to rebuild yourself. And how much of your old self is in the new version of you? Hopefully as little as possible. And one by one, I'm getting rid of certain things that I used to do. I still curse. Becoming less. I suppose you don't have to switch overnight. Getting rid of caffeine and sugar and these things, it's a process. But those things hurt you. They don't help you. So I've noticed that if I watch my diet, my ability to manifest or my ability to be successful is better. My ability to function on little sleep, my ability to make money, my ability to solve problems, my ability to relate to people, my confidence, all these things have improved by following this spiritual path, this path of individuation and enlightenment. I don't have superpowers yet, but I don't not have them either. When you have the ability to read people really well, Yeah, that is a superpower. And you only get that when you learn about yourself. The path to God is an inward journey. And I was actually talking to one of my mom's friends, and she listens to Wayne Dwyer, and she's like a big Tony Robbins fan. It's interesting how much people seek this stuff. I think on online, Dr. Joe Dispenza is super. He's like the one talking to the Gen Z. I don't know why I don't like him. Like he says all that you'd think we'd be best friends in real life, but I don't know. I don't know if it's because he's on Gaia and I don't trust him, or I don't know. Like when I see the title of his videos, I'm like, yes, that's true. When I hear like clips, I don't know what it is. I feel bad for saying that. Uh, but he's like me. He's like, except he has the DR in front of his name. So he's learned all the same stuff. We probably have a lot to talk about. But what a spiritual awakening is like, when coming from drowning, is learning to breathe underwater. It's not getting on the boat. It's not swimming to the shore. It's learning to breathe underwater. Because no matter what happens, if there's a storm, if the boat capsizes, if you're stranded on an island, like those are temporary solutions. But if you can breathe underwater, hopefully you can learn how to talk to fish so they don't mess with you. There's some weird things under the water. But that's what it's like. Like nothing that happens now can panic. Like thank God that I don't have. I don't know why I knocked on wood. They say that calls demons. Fuck off, demons. I haven't had like a huge traumatic event, and in my external world. Obviously, internal world has all been traumatic. Like, please leave me alone. But I don't know if I would ever, for instance, see death the same way or be affected by it the same way, because I know it's not the end. Of course, I would miss people. And of course, like my own death, it used to terrify me. And when I was unconscious, I was unhappy and I was afraid. I welcomed death. I wouldn't have killed myself, but I wanted to die. This place was so hostile. It seemed like it was for nothing. And you have to get sick of that feeling, and you have to be willing to let part of you die, essentially, because it is a death, but it's spiritual. It's probably why a lot of people commit suicide, is they get to this level. Now that I think of it, that's what makes sense. Then the demons come and try to convince you to do it. Life gets much, much harder. The devil comes to collect souls because you're up for grabs. And then if you individuate, you come out of it. And then rather seek the light at church or find God externally, you are the light. You learned how to breathe underwater, so you can never drown again. That's what spiritual awakening is. You'll still feel all the human emotions, but you will never be consumed by them. Like, what a powerful gift to give someone if you could put it in a pill and hand it to someone. You wouldn't need Xanax anymore. SSRIs, whatever that is. Drugs. This is what people are looking for. how do I package that and hand it to people, especially people I love that suffer? Because essentially, the way I see it is, in order to help people, I have to disappear. It's a solo journey. Mine was. I don't know if I could hold someone's hand and guide them through the darkest part of their life. Of course, I'd want to. Like, I can't explain how scary. Actual nightmares. Your life becomes a living nightmare. Hell, Jung said it. I would have thought it was, if I read this in high school or something, I'd be like, oh, that's an interesting metaphor. It is real. There's nothing more real than what's real to you. It's subjective, right? My experience of the world is subjective. It's through my eyes. So to me, I was in hell and I had to climb out of it. But can you imagine how you feel having lived through it? How you feel conquering it, learning how to breathe underwater, looking in the face of the devil and saying, you didn't get me. That's pretty powerful. You didn't get me and you can never get me, because I'm not going to fall for your shit. I'm not going to drink your booze, do your drugs, you know what I mean? This guy knows the rules now. So I spent so much time in my life in an unconscious state doing things that I shouldn't have been doing, acting in a way I shouldn't have been acting, because everybody does it. I'm just learning from everybody else. And now not only am I like morally righteous, but I also mind my own business. I think that's part of it. It's like you don't judge people and you don't condemn people. Like, these are the lessons that in the Bible, if you actually take the give us money narrative and spin off of it. Like, perhaps that is what we were actually being taught, which now I'm learning about Zoroastrianism, Zarathustra. It was like last week, I think it was Charshan Basuri, and then a couple days ago was Eid. And how funny, I've been seeing 777 and it's a half scene. 7. And then I looked it up and like 7 is super profound in the Zoroastrian religion. So I'm like, is it my ancestors telling me something? Is that why there's 7s? What are you telling me, guys? Even if I learn Farsi, I don't know if I could talk to them because I see the names of things in like ancient Persian. It seems more like Sanskrit or Urdu than it does modern Farsi. But how interesting. 7. Half seen. So there's like 7 deities, and the concept of good thoughts, good words, good deeds is so profound. If you don't understand or don't believe in God, and you just followed that mantra, actually, you'd be doing right by God and yourself. And this universe would reward you with all the rewards as if you did. In Christianity, it seems like, or Catholicism, confess your sins to your sins to some weirdo in a booth, and then you're forgiven, and you can murder, cheat, steal, whatever. But you still haven't, you know what I mean? There's karma, there's just saying words doesn't fix it. And furthermore, like knowing not to do it, like knowing. That's, every action begins with a thought. So good thoughts. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds. I think I have the Wikipedia page open, so I'm going to read more, and then I'm going to start watching videos on it. It's the next religion I'm going to learn about. And it seems just as time, human history is like documenting how far we've come from the truth, how much we've forgotten. I'm a life path 7. So does that mean when I see a 7, it's about my life path? How many synchronicities? What does it mean? Life path 7 is the spiritual path. It says you're not comfortable with a normal life. You need the answers to the big questions of the universe. And I was not that until I went through my spiritual awakening. I was caught in materialism. I just wanted stuff. Now I don't care about stuff. I think about how, society requires me to work, and I had to find something that I can do, and I'm an alchemist in my job. Take code, take it from its base state to its enlightened state. So I am the reincarnated alchemist of old. So I wonder how many people have this soul that was programmed to do something, and they're in a different field because they have to survive, and they feel trapped. And when their life falls apart, they rebuild it exactly the same. It's like the 3 little pigs, but they still just build the same house out of straw. I think there are different levels and different lessons. Like there's some people who get wealthy and then they lose it, and they spend the rest of their time trying to get the material wealth back because they identify their self-worth when it's just a test. I've been broke. I've been far richer than I am now. And hopefully, I think the next time I hit it, it's permanent. I don't think I can lose it again. Because I know money's energy. And I've been sowing a lot of seeds. So let's see when it's time to reap what I can reap. Okay. At least it's a thought. I don't know if I thought anything through, but on the other side of spiritual awakening, I have a rare peace. I still have a problem allowing myself to be happy because I'm used to stifling that in case something bad happens. But I have a conversation with myself every now and then, like, just start smiling and stuff. Everything's fine. I think recording these helps. Then I can be present. So that's it. March 21st, 2024. The beginning of the new year. how far I've come. See where I go. Thinking about how I'm going to pave this new road, the road less traveled by. I'll let you know.